Let's talk about a glaring contradiction in infrastructure: the lack of a fully integrated, public, and affordable rail connection between downtown Toronto and its largest international gateway, Pearson International Airport. Now, at first glance, this might seem like a local issue, one of many bureaucratic failures in transportation planning, but I want to argue this is no accident, no technical oversight. This is the inevitable outcome of a system that prioritizes profits over public need, private interest over collective good, and short-term image management over long-term infrastructure investment. And in the case of Toronto, the consequences are as economically damaging as they are socially revealing. Toronto Pearson International Airport is not just a transit hub, it is one of the most critical pieces of economic infrastructure in the country. It handles over 50 million passengers annually, pre-pandemic numbers, and it is a vital gateway for both domestic and international commerce, tourism, and trade. It supports more than 300,000 jobs across the Greater Toronto Area and contributes over $40 billion annually to the national economy. It is Canada's principal portal to the world economy, and yet it is easier to reach it by car than by train. How can that be? The question probably answers itself, because under capitalism, what gets built is not what is most rational or socially necessary, but what is most profitable in the short run for a narrow set of private actors. And Toronto's failure to build a proper airport rail link is a textbook case of this system's dysfunction. Let's go back to the beginning. For decades, Toronto has debated how to connect Pearson to downtown. There were countless reports, environmental assessments, planning exercises. There was Blue 22, a private proposal backed by SNC-Lavalin to run a premium rail service in the early 2000s. That failed. Then came the Union Pearson Express, a government-backed premium service meant to be ready in time for the Pan Am Games in 2015. That got built, yes, but not as a democratically or publicly accessible transit link. No, what we got instead was a boutique service at $27.50 one way when it opened. Designed not for workers or everyday travelers, but for business class executives and foreign visitors. It was built with diesel-powered trains, in an era when the rest of the world was electrifying. It had limited stops, no fare integration with the TTC, and capacity that fell far short of real mass transit link. And that's the point. It wasn't built to solve the transit needs of the people of Toronto. It was built to satisfy a political marketing deadline, the Pan Am Games, and to minimize government expenditure by shifting costs to the users, even if ridership remained low. This is how public-private models work. The private sector demands short-term returns, and the government, afraid of ballooning deficits, cuts corners and aims for the cheapest, fastest, lowest-risk outcome. And yet this model ends up costing far more in the long run, economically, socially, and environmentally. Let me explain the economic cost in more detail. First, congestion. Pearson is located far from the urban core and in a car-dominated region. Without a robust transit link, most travelers, millions of them, rely on cars, taxis, limousines, or shuttle vans. That creates congestion on the 401, 427, and Gardiner Expressway, already some of the most gridlocked highways in North America. That congestion delays freight, increases delivery costs, and slows down the movement of goods and workers. In classical economic terms, this is a deadweight loss. Time and money wasted, productivity lost, and supply chains disrupted. Then secondly, there's the labor market efficiency. A direct airport link isn't just for travelers, it's for workers. Thousands of low and middle income workers commute to jobs at Pearson every day, from cleaners and food service workers to airline staff and logistics professionals. These are not high income people, yet they are forced to rely on inefficient bus routes or multiple transfers to get to work. That restricts their job opportunities, increases their commute time, and reduces economic mobility. A proper transit link would expand the geographical range of job seekers, connect employers to talent pools, and reduce inequality. Then thirdly, there's the environmental damage. With no robust public alternative, travelers drive. That increases greenhouse gas emissions, air pollution, and noise. It pushes us further away from climate targets that we already struggle to meet. Electrified rail could dramatically reduce that footprint, as it has in European and Asian cities. The economic cost of climate change, wildfires, floods, extreme weather, are massive, and yet we continue to invest in half measures rather than the full systems needed to transition to a low-carbon economy. Now let's look at the social side. The Up Express is not integrated with the TTC fare system. That's no accident. Fare integration would have reduced the per-trip revenue and possibly cannibalized TTC riders. So instead, we get a fractured system. The TTC ends at Kipling or Islington. Go ends at Weston or Bloor. The airport link is in its own silo. This fragmentation benefits nobody, except maybe the private operators or contractors who thrive off of managing disconnected pieces of infrastructure. It certainly doesn't serve working people who need one affordable, unified system. This is what happens when transit is planned like a business venture and not as a social utility. What's worse is that we already know how to fix this. Cities around the world, from London to Tokyo, Hong Kong to Amsterdam, have built integrated airport rail links that are affordable, electric, and connected to the broader urban network. So why can't Toronto? The answer is that our planning model is broken. It's driven by political cycles, not long-term strategy. Governments announce projects to win elections. They cancel them to save money. They privatize them to offload risk, and then they wonder why nothing works. Let's take SmartTrack as an example. Originally proposed as a light, rapid transit link between Union Station and the airport with multiple stops in between, it was pitched by then mayoral candidate John Tory as a transformative solution. But what did we get? A watered-down GO expansion plan with fewer stops, less frequency, and no direct airport service. Once again, the public was sold a bold vision and delivered a diluted reality. This is neoliberal planning, big promises, and small follow-through. Now look at the Eglinton Crosstown West extension, which is supposed to eventually reach Pearson. Construction began in 2022, and it's expected to reach Renforth by 2030, but Renforth is still 2 kilometers from the actual airport terminals. No train has been promised to reach Pearson itself, and even if it does, that will be over a decade from now, meaning we are talking about a 20-plus year wait from announcement to delivery. For what? A piece of LRT that may or may not integrate into the broader GO network. It is staggering. Meanwhile, the economic opportunity cost continues to grow. Think of all the foreign investors, business travelers, and tourists who land in Pearson and have no seamless way to get into the city. Think of the missed revenue from higher ridership that a properly built rail system could generate. Think of the time lost, the emissions released, and the road space wasted. This is not just poor planning. This is a systematic failure. And yet, our governments continue to fund flashy one-off projects, naming rights deals, highway widenings, downtown vanity lines, while basic infrastructure with real economic multipliers is left behind. Why? Because under capitalism, infrastructure spending is driven not by need, but by return on investment. And when that return isn't immediate, then it accrues over 30, 40, or 50 years. It doesn't interest capital. It doesn't interest politicians either, because they're thinking about the next election and not the next generation. The lack of a proper rail link to Pearson Airport is not just a Toronto problem. It is a symbol of how our policies of late have hollowed out our capacity for collective planning. It reveals how the public sector has been ineffective, outsourced, and tied up in red tape. It shows how infrastructure, once a proud symbol of national development, has become a fragmented, contradictory, profit-driven mess. The irony is that we will eventually build this connection, but it will be too late. We will build it after congestion has crippled our roads, after climate change forces us to decarbonize, after decades of wasted potential. And when we do, it will cost double what it should have, because we waited too long. That is the price of delay. That is the cost of allowing private logic to dictate public needs. So if you want to understand the state of Canadian transit development policy, look no further than the 2 kilometers between Renforth Station and Pearson Airport. That unbuilt stretch is the metaphor for everything that's wrong with the short-termism, the underinvestment, the political cowardice, and the subordination of infrastructure to the interests of profit. We need a new way of thinking, one that treats transit as public right, not as luxury, one that sees infrastructure as a social good, not as a business opportunity, and one that plans for the many, not for the few. But until we get there, we'll be sitting in traffic, breathing polluted air, and wondering why the wealthiest city in the country can't even build a train to the airport. And the answer is clear. The system isn't broken. It's working exactly the way that it was designed. I hope that you liked the video. If so, please give it a like. If you're not subscribed and want to be notified of new videos that are released, please click on the Art Toronto button here. This is the video that I would recommend for you to watch next, and I'm sure that you're going to love it. Here's the playlist for all of the latest in transit news and views that you're going to find very informative and interesting. And finally, here is the latest video. Thanks for watching and happy transiting.